1320 WATR in Waterbury, Angela Giampolo, who is the founder of the PhillyGayLawyer.com and the Giampolo Law Group, who focuses on LGBT law, is joining us on short notice. And Angela, thank you so much for coming by here on WATR.
Absolutely. My girlfriend will be mad because I've only spoken to reporters, but hey, one.
Okay. Well, let me ask you. I mean, the Supreme Court ruling 5-4. I have not had time really to digest this. I don't know how much time you've really had to focus on it. Tell us, in terms of the 5-4 majority, if you've read any of the opinions and the prevailing opinion, give us a sense of what the law in this case is all about.
Right. So the law basically states very clearly. I don't know if you know how the Supreme Court works, but they try to predict how many cases are going to be announced based on the number of boxes. And this case had 3 boxes by itself. 3 boxes. So it's going to take a while to absorb it all. But basically, the law of the land is that a state cannot deny an LGBT couple the right to marry. And there were 2 issues. And let's say that you were in Tennessee, but you went and got married in New York, but there was no marriage in Tennessee. All states must recognize marriages by LGBT couples anywhere in the world, Spain, France, what have you.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering, because I always thought when we were going state by state that somebody could challenge it and say, well, that doesn't give me the opportunity or us as a couple to move from Connecticut to Tennessee because then I don't have the same benefits. It's not acknowledged. I can't even get divorced here because it's not acknowledged as being, a true union. So was that the prevailing, the 14th Amendment? Give us a sense of, what the underpinning is constitutionally.
Right, and that's why denying people the right to get married was not a sustainable thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you drove, when I drive to Provincetown, Massachusetts from Pennsylvania, I'm in and out of states that recognize whether or not I'm married. And that's just not what the United States was founded on, that to create legal quagmires. And, we're founded on a stable democracy, and everyone should know what their rights are at any given point, not based on where they're traveling. And similarly, if they had kids that they had adopted in Tennessee, they're no longer the legal parent of that child. I mean, when you choose to tie 1,138 federal and state rights to an institution like the institution of marriage, then you can't go around unilaterally telling some people that they can't have that. If it were truly just a religious issue and there weren't 1,138 rights tied to it that we need to live in this country as normal citizens, then we'd be having a First Amendment issue. But the 14th Amendment and equal protection says that LGBT people have been discriminated against in this way for years because we haven't been able to do the things that you may take for granted.
Okay. Now, when we talk about LGBT, most people think about lesbians and gays in this case. How transferable is this to those who are transsexual? I know, there's a lot of conversation about it now with Caitlyn Jenner and all. Tell us what this particular ruling means for transgender individuals.
Well, and for a lot of the arguments around same-sex marriage, and myself included as a lesbian, I've always been saying that marriage isn't really the biggest issue, right? Not everybody wants to get married. I come from a long line of Canadian people that never got married. The only one who did was my mom, and she's the only one who's divorced. So I think that's what made me a great marriage advocate. But trans people and even here in Pennsylvania, you can still be fired for being gay. So great. We have marriage equality. Now my partner and I put in for our gay honeymoon and we get fired, right? And trans people, they're trying to stay alive. 97% of trans people state that they are discriminated at work or harassed. Over half have attempted suicide. When you're worried about food, clothing, and shelter, so it has been controversial, I think, within the LGBT community that really marriage was an LGB issue, and that the T's are more worried about just being able to live life. But, to turn lemons into lemonade, any advancement for the movement generally helps everyone, right? And so Caitlyn's mainstream acceptance helps every trans person everywhere in the world. And similarly, gay marriage now being legal in the United States and it not being okay to discriminate against gay people on this issue will help the trans community, but they have a host of other issues that I think, quite frankly, are more important.
Okay. When we look at the justices, yesterday we were talking about John Roberts and Anthony Kennedy. Today, 5-4. Was it Anthony Kennedy who was the deciding vote?
Yep. So today, and a lot of people don't realize this, today is the anniversary, now it's a trifecta. Lawrence v. Texas was the sodomy case when it used to be illegal just to have gay sex. Mm-hmm. And that just came down in 2000. I mean, that was recent. Kennedy authored that opinion, and it was released on June 26th. And then similarly, the Windsor case, which came down 2 years ago and took down DOMA, also authored by Justice Kennedy, and that came out on June 26th. So even though Monday was an option, gay rights activists kind of knew that Kennedy wanted to author Penn. He authored it, the third and sort of final nail in the coffin, and release it on today. So it was 5-4. Kennedy was the swing vote. And we were a little worried because Kennedy likes two things, gay rights and states' rights. And this whole issue was really falling on whether a state had the right to make its own decision on this issue. So we came up against Kennedy's two favorite issues, states' rights and gay rights.
Interesting.
And gay rights prevailed.
Now, when you do look at this, I mean, the implications, I mean, what do you imagine we're going to see? I mean, this is obviously a momentous, a decision by the Supreme Court. What do you anticipate? I mean, because some people said, well, gee, we'd rather see it done legislatively so we know it's the will of the people. But we know then, that various civil rights would never be conferred if, in fact, it was all based on a majority vote. I mean, we do know that. But so tell us, I mean, what do you expect to see, particularly in places where this has got to be a difficult decision, given historic precedent? What do you think we're going to see?
Honestly, I think this is the beginning of a new wave of litigation. You know that boardwalk game, the whack-a-mole?
Yes.
The whack-a-mole game, right? So, and that's what I feel like conservatives are like with gay issues. It's like, I think we win, and then boom, up pops, a conservative issue, defense, if you will, in another hole. And what went under the radar, and I think we're going to start seeing, not to be Debbie Downer on such a good day, but Louisiana's governor, who also put in a bid to run for president, created, and it hasn't passed, but wrote what's called the Marriage Conscience Act. And it's a hybrid of RFRA, which we saw around the bakery cases and the pizza case. Mm-hmm. It's a hybrid of the Religious Restoration Freedom Act mixed with marriage. Right? So some guy in Louisiana who thinks I'm going to hell, and I come up with my partner and I say, sign my marriage certificate, my marriage license. And that's against his religion and he doesn't want to. Does he have to? Or can he recuse himself based on his religious liberties and freedoms? So honestly, I think the next wave of litigation will be how does individuals' First Amendment rights coexist with
religious
our right
freedom
to be full citizens. Yeah.
What does happen? I mean, practically speaking, when it falls against church doctrine? I mean, churches will not have to perform marriages, will they? I mean, this will have to be in a civil.
No, absolutely. It's still hard today for a Jewish person if he wants to marry a black woman. It's still difficult to find a rabbi that'll do interfaith or interrace, ceremony. So people have been coming up against this issue for years, not just gay people. So the fact that this ruling came down does not mean that churches now, Catholic Church has to marry me. But I just want to remind people that in every other country in the world, not every other, but in most other first world countries, this has never been an issue, right? I mean, in Canada, everybody really truly just gets civil unions, and then whether or not you get married is whether or not you have a religious ceremony after you do the legal part. But colloquially, everybody says they're married, right? My aunts and uncles aren't civil unions. They just use the word marriage, and my mother was the only one after she did what all of her brothers and sisters did, went a step further because she married my Italian American,
well, that
father,
is one.
they had
Yeah, that's one way to handle it. Is that everybody gets a civil union, and then if you want to go to a religious institution and confer marriage. Well, anyway, listen.
Right.
Thank you so much for coming by on short notice, Angela Giampolo. She is the founder of the PhillyGayLawyer.com. Thanks again. It was great to talk with you. It's now
You're welcome.
16 minutes before 11 o'clock.